Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming here today. The people who are in the webinar, welcome to. We're here today to continue the conversation on the principle of cultural competence, and the principle that we are going to discuss today is community collaborations. We're having a panel of two people from two agencies in our town in Nashville who are an example of how to build community collaborations, and two people from those organizations who are themselves models on how to build those collaborations. Amy Richardson with Silom and the Hispanic Family Foundation, Tina Allen with the Hispanic Family Foundation. But before that, we have our keynote speaker, who is Jim Hobbs. He'll tell you more about himself, and he'll be presenting as well about how to build the community. Jim?
These days, without my glasses. That's a new thing for me. First of all, I'd like to thank Megan and Alexander and Sarah and the entire Tennessee Disabilities Pathfinders for their hospitality and for inviting me to do something that I really don't get a big chance to do, and that is to reflect on what I'm doing back in my own work world. I work with I'm the executive director of the Neighborhoods Resource Center. We're an organization that works with residents and neighborhood organizations in metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County on a wide range of issues. And this probably happens with you. We work and we work and we work, and we get very little time to reflect on the actual work that we're doing. And so when Alexander Sarah asked me to consider speaking today, it gave me a 2-month opportunity to deeply reflect on collaborations and specifically on community collaborations. So I want to thank them for that. I also want to thank you for being here today, because I'm not an expert, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say as the conversation continues, so that I can learn from you as well. I'm going to share a few things about myself today. I hope you don't mind. If you don't, but if you do mind, I'm going to do it anyways. But I think they get at the heart of collaboration. So this is my father. He's the good-looking one on the far left and the taller guy in every other picture. And that is me with a lot more hair than I have today. My father was a builder. That wasn't his full-time job. He was actually the manager of a local water treatment plant. But every afternoon at 4:30, he would leave his full-time job and drive 20 miles into a nearby forest. There he would work late into the night building cabins. At first, he built one-story simple cabins. And then with every new cabin he built, he grew in his skills, and they became more and more complex. By the time I was a teenager, he was working on a 2-story cabin, complete with a hand-cut stone floor and a hand-laid stone fireplace. My father was entirely self-taught. He didn't learn these skills in school. He didn't learn them in the Army. I remember one time my father wanted to learn how to build a real log cabin. And he spent months reading these old Foxfire books that described how to cut down the trees and how to get them shaped just right so that he could build this cabin. He built his own log cabin, and it was complete with 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, great dining room, huge living room, wraparound deck, and a beautiful fireplace. Every cabin began the same way, sketched on a piece of paper, or more specifically on a paper towel. revision after revision after revision until he got it right. Then, night after night, constructing his cabin. When he didn't understand something or he couldn't do the work himself, he would gather his friends, a retired plumber, an electrician, friends who owned a lumber company, one who was a stonemason, and they would work together to solve whatever the problem of the day was. A case of beer always seemed to be involved in these discussions. My dad would throw out his idea or tell them what the problem was. Then everyone would chime in telling him how their ideas would work better. This went on for months at a time while the cabin rose from the foundation. When the cabin was complete, families were invited, friends stopped by, and they told stories of how they overcome every obstacle and created this work of beauty. At the time, I remember thinking, man, this is like they're building the Taj Mahal, and it's just a stupid cabin. But for them, it was significant. I don't build cabins. I was fortunate enough to pick up a few of the skills and knowledge, but I never took the time or had the interest to build them. I prefer to build community. I bring together people from diverse experience and backgrounds to work towards a shared vision and common goals. From my own background, I've developed a very personal definition of collaboration. Collaboration is about building working relationships that bring together critical assets in order to help people achieve a shared vision and goals. It is always about relationships. It's always about bringing together critical assets. It's always about a shared vision and goals. It's also always a very human activity. I'll say a little bit more about that later on. In the workplace today, many of us are spending more and more time collaborating with our coworkers. It's a trend that's shifting the emphasis from individual effort to group work, from independence to community. The Harvard Business Review reports that collaborative activities inside the workplace have ballooned by 50%. We are being pushed into a more collaborative world. The first time I heard about the word collaboration in relation to nonprofit organizations was at a Center for Nonprofit Management conference. The buzz was all about nonprofits needing to collaborate in order to get foundation dollars. The word was out. We want you to collaborate with other nonprofits. The message was clear. Collaboration equals money. If you really want to succeed in grant writing, you had better be willing to collaborate. Is that really the reason that we should be collaborating? Maybe. But no, not for me. It really, we need to collaborate for the same reasons that my dad worked with his buddies. My dad didn't push people to do things for him. Instead, he pulled his trusted friends into collaboration, and for a lot of different reasons. First of all, there were times that he just didn't have the knowledge or skills to get the job done. He was not an electrician. Having a partner who was able to work with him to make his dream come true became a reality. Collaboration with the right partner increases our knowledge and experience. Second, there were times that it was about having enough manpower. That's what my dad would say. We need people power. Moving a 300-pound piece of limestone rock is not something one does on their own. Many of us work in very small nonprofits. We know the limitation of not having enough people power to get the work done. Collaboration can expand our capacity to provide important services and programs. Third, my dad was also known to have a lot of tools. But every time he had a project, there was always one tool that he just didn't have. And it always cost too much money. What was good was he could always go to one of his friends and borrow that tool. Collaboration helps us cut costs of projects that would simply be too expensive for us to do on our own. And then finally, when those guys got together to think about a problem, they usually came up with great ideas that they wouldn't have thought about on their own. Bringing together diverse staffs from different organizations can bring about totally new ideas that neither group would have thought about separately. But when they get together, a truly great idea is born. Collaboration can bring about new and better ideas. One benefit that I want to mention that I couldn't tie into this story neatly, it has to do with advocacy. When nonprofits collaborate, it also helps to increase an organization's ability to advocate for their cause. Raising your voice alongside like-minded organizations means your message grows in volumes. For the past 20 years, the Neighborhoods Resource Center has helped neighborhoods build collaborative organizations to address the pressing issues facing their own neighborhoods. From crime prevention and safety to disability to development, from sidewalks to affordable housing, from urban blight to gentrification, the NRC works with residents and neighborhood organizations to preserve and improve their neighborhoods. At the heart of our work is a commitment to collaboration, specifically to community collaboration. It is the first of our 4 core values. We believe that neighborhoods are stronger and more vibrant when each neighbor identifies her or his own self-interests, acknowledges the self-interest of others, and then works together to build a shared vision and a shared set of goals. So what does that change look like? Sometimes it looks like a speed cushion or a reduced speed limit in a neighborhood. One neighbor might complain for years about drivers speeding through their neighborhood, but 30 or 40 concerned citizens working together can get the attention of the local government. Sometimes it looks like a playground and clean park. For those of you who live in Nashville, many of you know what 12 South neighborhood looks like today. It wasn't always like that. When Tricia Franz moved into her neighborhood 17 years ago, there was no 12 South neighborhood. There were prostitutes walking up and down 12 South, and there were also so many drug users that the Sevier Park was nicknamed Needle Park. First week that Trish was in her neighborhood, she brought home a load of groceries, and she took the first load into her house, and by the time she came back, all of her groceries were gone. What did she do? She and a few of her neighbors on Montrose Avenue started getting together about once a month for cookies and tea. Some had lived there all of their lives, and others were brand new to the neighborhood. They were a diverse group of people, black and white, young and old, gay and straight. They got to know each other and became friends. They talked about what was going on in their neighborhood and the changes they wanted to see. They decided that they wanted the prostitutes gone, the park cleaned up, and they wanted a safer and friendlier neighborhood. Trish was then introduced to the Neighborhoods Resource Center. She began taking our leadership classes, and she started bringing other neighbors to those classes. They learned how to set agendas and how to lead meetings, how to listen to one another, and how to set priorities, how to develop a solid plan of action, and how to hold one another accountable. NRC began a collaboration with the new Montrose Avenue Association. That's what it was called back then. It continued for several years. We understood their vision and their goals, and they became our shared vision and our goals. It was hard work, but with their leadership, they worked with the Metropolitan Police and parks and their council members to reduce the crime. They held a block party that brought together the whole neighborhood. They cleaned up the park, and their neighborhood association purchased playground equipment. After several years, they grew from a few homes on Montrose Avenue to the 3,000 homes that are now known as the 12 South Neighborhood Association. How did they do all of that? Collaboration. Working together with their neighbors, working together with the Metro Police and Metro Parks, working together with the Metropolitan Council member and even the mayor's office, working together with businesses and churches. The prostitutes were gone, the park was cleaned up, the neighborhood was safer and friendlier. Collaboration is about building working relationships that bring together critical assets in order to help people achieve a shared vision. Collaboration isn't without its challenges. In my time in the business world and my time in the nonprofit world, I've basically decided that there's about 3 challenges that every collaboration faces: personalities, focus, and time and resources. First and foremost, collaboration really is a human activity. Organizations do not collaborate. People collaborate. While on paper we may talk about collaboration between 2 organizations or more organizations, it's really about collaboration among human beings. People from these organizations coming together to collaborate. Just because 2 or more organizations, or in reality 2 or more executive directors, decide their organization will collaborate on a project, it doesn't mean that everyone in the collaboration team will be on board or even capable of collaborating. Most of us who lead nonprofit organizations spend a lot of time selecting the right person for our organization. We want someone who will add value to our organization and will get along with the other team members. What we seldom do is consider how those people will get along with other collaborative teams in other organizations. Last year, we began collaborating with another organization that we've worked with for several years. My counterpart and I, well, we get along really well, but we both have very different ways of working, and we both have finally come to understand our own quirks and ways of doing things. We began working on this grant, which, guess what? It was required to be a collaborative grant, and so we decided we would work on this thing, and we were both going to share in the work. We were both going to share in the funding. Someone else in our organization, though, took lead and began working with my counterpart. In no time at all, it became apparent that our point person was really struggling. He didn't really understand those quirks that I sort of liked about the other person, and it was really, really frustrating. And so, you know, what we did, frankly, was, since we're such a small organization with 3 people, I went ahead and took the lead. I mean, we had 30 days to do this grant, and so I took the lead again, and we got it done. But those problems, those challenges, are really important to recognize. Collaboration is all about building working relationships with other humans. In order to successfully rise above the challenges of personalities, we must recognize that we are human, each of us with differing gifts and talents, and we must find ways to minimize those individual weaknesses, if we can call them that, and maximize those individual strengths, if we can call them that, so that the collaborative effort can succeed. Focus. One thing that I recently realized is that more often than not, we are either pulled into collaboration by another organization or we're pulling prospective partners into collaboration. It's just like my father did with his friends. There was a problem that he could not solve on his own, so he called on people with expertise to help. The organizations that we typically collaborate with are not like us. We are the only nonprofit organization in the metropolitan area, and even actually in the state of Tennessee, committed to equipping residents and neighborhood organizations with the tools that they need so that they can lead their neighborhoods. Quite frequently, we are collaborating with organizations that have a very different expertise. And if they're positively focused, properly focused, would have a positive impact on our neighborhood leaders. NRC recently concluded a three-part series called Affordable Housing in My Neighborhood. The series was a collaboration between our organization and members of A Voice for the Reduction of Poverty. If you're unfamiliar with A Voice, it's a powerful advocate for the reduction of poverty, and they have a wealth of knowledge and expertise on a wide range of issues, including affordable housing. Here we had two different organizations that are doing great things. NRC in relation to neighborhoods, and A Voice in relation to the reduction of poverty. The overlap for us, the shared vision, was centered on affordable housing in local neighborhoods. Here's the challenge. NRC deals with many issues surrounding neighborhoods, including crime and safety, code violations, sidewalks, conflict resolution, and even the broader issue of development. A Voice deals with issues surrounding poverty, including unemployment, education, food insecurities, and even the broader issue of adopting a county-wide strategy for affordable housing. Could we keep our focus on affordable housing in local neighborhoods? I think for NRC and A Voice, it was really easy to keep out the things that obviously didn't relate to our topic. It's crime and safety or food insecurity. We could leave those off the table. But the harder challenge for NRC was, did we want to start slipping into conversations about the rapid development and developers? And for A Voice, the problem was to talk about that issue just within local neighborhoods. So used to talking about that issue on a citywide or metro area basis that they focus on neighborhoods. In the end, we were able to create a series for neighborhood leaders that, first of all, explained what affordable housing is and isn't. Second, provided specific tools and options for local neighborhoods. And then third, discussed how to lead difficult conversations on affordable housing with our neighbors, with government leaders, and with developers. Collaboration is about creating a shared vision and goals. In order to successfully rise above the challenge of remaining focused, we must make our vision and goals clear. For me, at my age, yes, that does mean actually writing down the vision and the goals. It also means working on controlling the tangents and continually asking if the discussions we are having and the actions we are taking really contribute to our shared vision and goals. The third challenge that we face is limited time and resources. In the Harvard Business Review that I mentioned earlier, the writers of that report said that the employees and companies spend up to, you and me, we spend up to 80% of our time in meetings, talking on the phone, or answering emails. 20% of our time is for actually getting the job done. Why? But it's so true, right? This leaves us with little time to get that critical work done. So we're a little organization with 3 full-time paid staff. I want to acknowledge very briefly today that we have some staff here that I'm excited about. We have our leadership development specialist, Valerie Otanellis, here. And one thing that we're extremely excited about is this year we have a first high school intern from the Opportunity Now program of the mayor's office. And we have Antoinette with us as well. And she'll be with us for about 6 weeks. So we are a small staff. There's only one other full-time person that's with us. Valerie is in charge of programming. The other person's responsible for development. And I get stuck doing a third of development, a third of program, and a third of administration. We just don't have a lot of time. And you know, when you look at our budget, the strength of our organization is the people. 70% of our little budget goes to staff. 10% goes to keeping the lights on, keeping the doors open. That gives us 20% of our budget to do anything beyond that, right? While collaborating with another nonprofit is a great opportunity to expand services and programs and increase our ability to advocate for our cause, it does have an impact on every organization's time and resources. So when we collaborate with another organization, we've got to take an inventory of our available time and resources and make hard decisions on what we're willing to sacrifice in order to make that shared vision and those shared goals a reality. Collaboration is about bringing together critical assets, our time and resources, in order to successfully rise above the challenge that limited time and resources present. We must be honest, hold one another accountable, affirm humor, and be flexible and adaptable. One of the things that is important for you to know about me is that I view life as one great experiment. There is no book that we can read, no movie that we can watch, no lecture that we can hear that will provide us with a complete knowledge of life or of how we can succeed in collaboration. From the moment we open our eyes, even perhaps before we open our eyes, we are experimenting with the world around us, trying to determine how we will meet our basic needs while achieving our fullest potential. This is also true for nonprofit organizations. I've worked with a lot of people over the years. Sometimes I feel like I've been working on collaborative efforts since the word, even before the word collaboration was used. I've done a lot of reading, been informed by the arts, and certainly heard a lot of lectures. While these have greatly informed me, nothing has taught me more about collaboration than actually collaborating. Every time I work on a collaborative effort, I gain significantly in skill and knowledge. I was going to share with you one story, but I think I need to share with you another. So I'm just going to stop here and we'll skip the slide when it comes around. A little bit more about the Neighborhoods Resource Center, and particularly about neighborhood organizations in metropolitan Nashville-Davidson County. We have something like 528 square miles in metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County. To quote one famous politician, it's huge, right? I mean, it's a huge place. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of neighborhoods across metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County. We just completed last year, this year, 2017 census of neighborhood organizations. There are only 65 to 75 active neighborhood associations in metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County. At one time, 10 years ago, there were approximately 200 neighborhood associations. The good news is in the last 2 years, we've seen an increase in people who really want to take back their neighborhoods and make them strong and vibrant. That's exciting news. Another thing that I think is important to know is, and this helps with community collaboration too. There are 600 in 2017. I'm going to get the figures wrong because I didn't write them down. I'll fudge them. We're used to that. The U.S. Census Bureau did a census of metropolitan Nashville-Davidson County. There's like 668,000 people living there back then. Now, 80 people a day, it's going to grow, right? The Pew Center for Research did this study a few years ago. How many people know their neighbors? How many people know the people on their left, people on their right? Stunning results. Stunning. Only 4 out of every 10 people know who their neighbors are. That means that 6 people have no idea who their neighbors are. Put it another way, 440,008 people in this city don't know who their neighbors are. We did the census of neighborhood organizations this year and found out that there were only between 3,500 and 5,000 people involved in the neighborhood association. That means in less than 1% of those people in our city are involved in the neighborhood organization. One of the things that we're attempting to do at the Neighborhoods Resource Center is inspire others to become involved in their neighborhood. And it's a tremendous challenge for people. It's a challenge for us. You know, when I came here 30 years ago, I came to go to Divinity School. Came from, hope there's no predator stands here, came from Pittsburgh. All right. And, you know, I moved down here and fell in love with the city. I was the stranger. My spouse's family is all from Shelbyville, and they were like, let the Yankee go home, you know. You know, I was we have people coming to this city from all over the world, you know. Lewisburg, Tennessee to Afghanistan, you name the continent, people are coming here. And we're bringing with us our own identities and our own ideas of what it means to be a good neighbor and what it means to live in a great neighborhood. And I don't know why, but everybody thinks that the answer that they have to that question is the right answer and have a very difficult time being open to hearing what other people have to say about their understanding about neighbors and neighborhoods. And you know, it's interesting. I went to school in West Virginia, for college in West Virginia, and if you've never been, make sure you go. You know, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. The college catalog had this picture of a house, this broken down old house on it, but it just looked, it was like, that's where I want to go to get away. You know? So I went there, and every yard had, and I'm not joking, when coming into this town, every yard had a car on cement blocks, you know, and you know, and the houses were run down. And I was coming in there, and I was looking at all this, and you know, for the first few times in, it was really charming, quite charming. But then I was like, you know, this is pretty sad. And there's a lot of economic disparity and problems going on, right? But my solution was, well, we need to get those houses fixed up. We need, you know, and there I am 30 years ago, gentrifying, right? And really trying to get people to change who they are at the core. I think today, one of the things that I really am working on is not trying to pick out winners and losers, not trying to pick out whose definition is best, but really saying, you know, there's parts of all of our stories, our identities, our understandings that can work into a new understanding of who we are as neighbors and who we are as a neighborhood. And so this is the work that we do, and that we get excited about. We have, this fall, we have our Nashville Neighborhood Celebration. And that celebration is a day-long celebration of Nashville's neighborhoods and all those people who work hard to make them happen. And I've got to tell you, I go from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood, and every one of those leaders are a very different person. and they have different understandings about every topic that we broach. But we come together once a year and we work hard. And this isn't just 5 or 6 people. Our celebration leadership team by July will be 60 people representing 60 different neighborhood organizations from across the city working together. And the struggles that we have, there was a woman that came up to me afterwards from our meeting on Saturday and said, I tried to tell this guy what I was talking about, and he just wasn't listening to me. He said, and I believe this myself because we really work on this, I'm in charge, so this is the way we're going to do it. We've got a challenge. We've got a challenge. But I want to end. I was going to recap what I have to say, but I think I run too long. It is really important for those of us who are working on community collaborations to make clear what we're trying to accomplish, to help people see the vision that this is something about more than just them, and the possibilities of what can become of any neighborhood or of the city of Nashville. And if we're able to do that, if we're able to inspire people to true greatness, to moving beyond themselves and being concerned about the whole community, we ourselves should consider ourselves very successful. Now, it doesn't happen the first time. It doesn't even happen the second or the third or the fourth. Every time we work on these collaborative projects, we gain in skill and knowledge. We are able to help people work just a little bit more at building those relationships. We're a little bit more effective in helping people bring together the assets. And we're definitely a lot better at helping people to come and understand that shared vision and those shared goals. I'm excited to be here. I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions, your comments as we continue this dialogue. Thank you.
Okay. So we're ready. Couple of things.
I'm supposed to take some
this event is being recorded on social media.
And I'd welcome comments because this really is a learning process for me. Just to have the opportunity.
Right now, it's also in live tweeting.
Share what you
hashtag community collaboration.
Your experience
as well as capital. And it's also being recorded, so behave. And our next speaker is Amy Richardson with Siloam Health, formerly known as Siloam Family Health. And it's a pleasure to have him here.
Good afternoon. It's great to see all of you. I will do my best to be on good behavior since you're recording it in so many ways. I didn't do a PowerPoint mainly because
I need to repeat the question.
I want to try to keep you all engaged.
I'm going to abbreviate what kinds of neighborhoods are we working
Since this is about collaboration,
neighborhood
hopefully I'll try to
associations
keep some eye contact.
and it's a mixture.
Stay engaged with
for
me.
Instance, traditionally we have
thank you all for inviting me to join and talk about collaboration.
Either have
I
everything
am
that
a
they need,
native
or they feel like
Nashvilleian, one of the
everything
rare
they need.
unicorns,
So we've really worked with,
who I think really aren't that rare. There are quite a few of us that are native to
as all the other
this city,
neighborhoods.
and I love this city.
But we work
one
with
of the things I like about the city is the spirit of volunteerism
those neighborhoods
and
are comprised
working
of
together that I have
middle-income people
seen
to
in my
lower-income
life here.
people.
So
They are
sometimes when I
comprised of renters,
hear
they are
us in the city
comprised
talk about
of
collaboration, I
Section
think
8
we
housing.
all already
We
think we're
have not
already
gotten to
doing
the
it
point
really well.
where we're actually trying to break
But
down.
we
It was a
probably
big challenge
all
for us
have
in our
ways that we
census
can
of
grow
neighborhoods
and make
this
it
year
better
to just get people
too.
to
So
respond to our initial census.
when Sarah sent
never
me
used to doing it
questions
before. So we got
to
that.
address
I think it would
in
be really
the
interesting
panel with
future
Christina
to be able
too,
been tracking those demographics.
she said, what has been your strategy for developing collaboration? And the first thing I thought of was there's actually different kinds of collaboration. And I thought I would use an analogy of one of my favorite things, and that's food. I love food, and so that makes a good analogy. So when we think about collaboration, one kind I think is like
so
a chef.
First question for all those who are listening.
I just made this up, guys. So
internet,
the analogy
what's
may
our
not hold
celebration
through, but bear with me.
So the celebration this year will be held on September the 30th.
But a chef and
It's held from 10
a chef
a.m.
is pretty
to 3
independent,
p.m.
but he still needs some help. So he
and
probably has a
we,
sous chef that helps him and
hold it
passes
in a
some
local
things for her.
neighborhood. So this year it's being held in a
And
rapidly
so we get the
transitioning
job
neighborhood
done. I think
called
we work
Elizabeth
that way
Park
a lot in our
North
everyday
Nashville.
lives,
We
in our
chose that
jobs.
area
You know,
for a
we
couple
have
different
coworkers and we have others on our
One is
team. We
because
couldn't do our job without them. When
traditionally
someone's
North
on
Nashville
vacation,
has
when
been
someone's
ignored.
sick, it makes our job a lot harder.
And people
So we
don't
collaborate
think anything
daily,
but negative things
but that's not
about
really
North
the
Nashville.
kind of
You look at
collaboration that
media,
I think
bad.
that
And there's a
Jim
lot
was
of great
talking
things
about, or the
happening.
kind that we really
And
need
there
to
have
practice
been a lot of
as
great
well.
things happening. So
But
we
it makes
wanted
a
to
big
focus
difference
the
if that
celebration on that
collaboration
area
isn't there in
so
the
that
first place.
we could celebrate the
Another
people. Second
example, I
reason why
think,
we're
is a
holding it in that
potluck.
specific area is for the
Siloam,
first time
if you're
they are
not
trying to
familiar
start
with
4
Siloam,
new
we are a
neighborhood organizations
nonprofit
in the
health
immediate
clinic
area. So we
a
wanted
few
to be
blocks
able to
over on
inspire
8th
people
Avenue,
by hearing
and
what
about
other
90%
neighborhood
of our
associations
patients are foreign born.
Today's just a great celebratory
Our
event.
largest patient
We have,
populations are
always
Spanish
local
speaking, then
musicians,
Arabic speaking, then
performing
English.
on a live
But we
on a
serve
music stage.
patients from over
Those
70 language groups,
musicians,
as well as
primarily will
people
be
born
from the
right
North
here
Nashville area.
in this
We
city.
were in South Nashville.
And we serve
South Nashville.
those without insurance.
We
So
have a spoken word stage.
our staff
where we
also
invite
reflects the
poets and
diversity of our
storytellers.
patient
The
population.
theme this
So when
year
we have
is neighbors and
potlucks
neighborhoods.
at my
They
work,
can tell
it's
stories
delicious.
about good neighbors or bad neighbors.
I would love to
They
invite
can tell
all of you.
stories about, they can
But
share poetry
potlucks, what
about
happens
it
in a
means to be
potluck is
neighborhood.
everyone brings something. So
We
in our
have a
potluck,
neighborhood
we might
showcase
have
where we invite
homemade
every
salsa,
neighborhood
and we may have
association, crime watch
Nepali
group,
dumplings
homeowners
called momos,
association,
and we may have
condominium rental-
Egyptian
condominium
kosheri, which is like the
associations
macaroni
to
dish,
set up a table
and apple
and
pie.
tell people about their neighborhood.
And so we have a
We
lot
have
of
a
different
chili
foods that come
cook-off.
together,
We
but they
have
don't
a,
necessarily
outdoor
make a
activities and
cohesive meal.
games. We have
It's still
the
a
neighbor
delicious
games.
meal.
One of my favorite.
And I think this is one of the most common kinds of
Nobody dies in
collaboration
this
is
game.
that we bring in partners to do the
And
work
the other thing is,
that
you
we're all
see what I look
contributing
like.
towards.
We're not an athletic
But it's still not
competition.
necessarily
This
for a
athletic, this
cohesive
competition is
picture,
really
even if it
about
still works really,
creating a
really well
series
to
of
have all those
challenges
pieces
that
there.
really require the teams
And the
to work
last
together
example of
creatively
collaboration
and it
is
may sound
this
like
term.
a nerdy thing
It's
or
not a
something
common
too
term, but I'm
academic
stealing
like,
it from
but
the
it
New
really
York
is a lot of
Times.
fun.
It's called collective
So we have
cooking.
all these different things
And it's
going
an
on.
opportunity where
Just
people
try to get people
plan
and we have
the whole meal
engagement
together. So you
And then the
decide what to
engagement
cook
zone,
together, you shop
people are
together, you prep
encouraged
together,
to
you eat together,
participate in a
and then you clean
conversation
up together. And so it's
about
all
what
give
it
or
means to
take.
be a good
And an
neighbor,
example
what it means to
here,
live
like
in a great
the
neighborhood.
collaboration involved, like
And I
maybe
forgot your second
you
question, I
want
apologize.
beef and I want fish, or you're vegetarian. Well, there's going to have to be some decision making because we're making the meal together. So we work together to figure out what that's going to be.
So, that's
And
a
I think
huge
that's
transition
that
for
kind
us.
of example is
We've been in
probably what
pilot for
we
about 3
mean
years
when we
because
say
we-
collaboration,
Frankly,
but it's
when I
definitely not the
came in
most
as
common
director,
of
we
what
were
we
in terrible
do
financial
when we
straits. We were
collaborate.
about ready to close
So I
our
think
doors.
one of the things
So we
that
did
has
3
been a
years of
strategy
piloting
for
this
developing
program.
collaboration
And-
is just
and
figuring out
last
what you
year,
actually
what
need
we
when you
did
say collaborate.
primarily all
Are we
those
talking
years
about
was
we need to have
just
a
ask
potluck
neighborhood
here? Are we
associations
actually needing to
for
cook
people
together?
that could serve on the
Because it means
committee.
different things
And we got
for
people that
what our
way. And it's a
actions
pretty
will
diverse
be.
group
So I
of
think that's
people,
one of the
except for this.
strategies is figuring out
It was all either people who were
what
black
we
or
want to do
people
together,
white.
how we're doing it, and how much we're
That's
gonna actually do
traditional
together.
Nashville, right? And
Another
so what we've been
question
trying to do,
was,
is
what has
reach
been
out to other
successful?
partners, try to find
And
people who are
I think for
not
us, one of
involved
the
in
most
neighborhood
successful things
associations
is bringing
who can
in
bring their
people
story
from
to the conversation.
all of
And
the,
we're beginning to
trying
make
not to use
inroads with that. But
buzzwords, but I
that's our
think I
cutting
have
edge
to,
for us,
stakeholders.
right?
Bring all
Is,
stakeholders in.
culture.
So for me, my collaboration
about neighborhood
with
associations
other
that I can
cultures.
tell
So I
you
mean,
anecdotally
stakeholders
is
from
when Valerie and I
other
go to those
communities.
neighborhood
I can't
associations, they're either all white,
impose
all
a
black,
program onto
or
a
black and
community.
white. There are very few people who are not black or white who are
Feedback. I'm
participating.
not
I know that doesn't mean that people who are not
all
black
right.
and white don't care about their
Maybe
neighborhood.
mute your
It just
mute
means
your
that the system that we have set up today for addressing
or you can jump in.
issues
Maybe you want to
is not the
collaborate with me.
system that will help
Um,
poverty reduction. and we're going to have to find new ways of engaging people.
So one thing that's been successful
So
is
that's
bringing
forward.
people in,
And the other thing that we're
culture.
woefully not doing in our neighborhoods is
I'm
involving
gonna keep
our
going and
teenagers.
pretend like we can't.
So what we're trying to do this
That's
year
not-
is work with Oasis Center and a few other
Bringing people in, but not
youth
just.
agencies to see if we
I mean,
can get
honestly,
more
this
youth involved in this program.
interruption on the webinar is a very good example of when you bring people in. Really, to make a successful collaboration, I think it's almost impossible to not have some face-to-face meetings. So if you don't get together and meet face-to-face, at least at some point, you're going to miss something, because we don't just communicate with words or with an email or text, but there's body language, other nuances that we miss if we don't have some face-to-face interaction. So I think as hard as it is to collaborate and make time for that, that's a really important factor. I think another important piece of success is to outline ahead of time what you're looking for, what your goal is, and then
Thank you. I agree with
write
your
it
comment
down,
about trust
the
and building those
responsibilities in each
relationships.
party. So this could be
sort of
something really
blame, in
formal,
many
like
ways,
a contract
the
or a
70s reverse
memorandum of
stranger danger.
understanding.
I think
Or
we've
it could
taken
just
that
be
to heart.
informal, that you
And,
put it in an
every
email.
neighbor is a
My
potential
organization is going to do this.
bug,
These are the responsible
terrorist,
parties within my
burglar,
organization that are going to
every
take care
neighbor
of
is a
particular
potential
pieces, and your
threat to our-
organization or
and
your
it's very sad to
do
me
these other
to see
things. So
people at
putting it
night
down
go
on
to their
paper in the
neighborhoods
front end, because
and
as much
see if
as
this
we
sounds
all love
familiar.
each
Maybe it's
other,
you. There's
when
people
it
all
gets
the time.
stressful
Go
and
home,
hard,
open
the
the door,
blame finger comes up. And I don't
turn off
want
the
to do
alarm,
that.
shut
So
the
just
door,
outlining it
turn
on
the
the
stay
front end
alarm
makes
back on,
collaborations go
and
a lot
stay
better.
in.
Or you
Or
might,
maybe
we're
around 10 or
Nashville,
11
we're
o'clock,
really southern.
turn the alarm off
and
again,
bless your
go
heart.
back out,
So
party,
I
come
may
back
not,
in.
I may be passive
I mean, it
aggressive, but if
really
I have it
is
on paper,
about staying
that
in our
that
homes,
cuts out some
and our
of
homes
the
become this
um,
hassle
the
that
stress
we just
involved.
don't go outside.
Another important thing, it almost goes
I'm
without saying, is
concerned about the
communication,
current,
right?
the-
But
we've
I
all
think
heard about the
over
shootings today.
communicating. So when you're
Those
in
are
a
just the ones that
collaboration,
get listeners.
there's a lot of
And,
assumptions
there's all these
about
shootings in
even
local neighborhoods
terminology.
across our
We could
country
both be using the
that
same
never
word, but we
even
mean
get
different
mentioned,
things. So
for a
over
variety of reasons,
communicating
but they never get
about
mentioned.
what
In
may
order
be
for us
obvious really
to
helps build
change
stronger
that story of
collaborations
how
and
we're
more
living,
successful
we're going to have
outcomes.
to risk leaving our homes again
Someone earlier
and
in
getting
the
to know our
audience
neighbors.
mentioned
It does
trust.
very little good. I don't want
And
to say it
I
does
think
no good.
having that
But,
trust
right now, there's
is
people
really
who know,
important. How
that
you
I
build
know
it
of, who know people in other parts
usually
of the country
involves
really well,
time and
other parts of
investment
the
and
world.
relationship.
They have friends in any country,
And a
but
shared
they don't
sense
know
of
their
purpose.
neighbors.
And
And
so
while
I think that
that's really
can
good
help
for enlightenment for that individual,
in
it does
successful
very little for the
collaborations.
communities in which we live.
Um,
And so we're going to have to
and I mentioned
figure
a
out
few
a
minutes
way
ago
to really
naming
engage our
specific
neighbors where we live,
responsibilities, but
make a
also
difference in this
naming
world.
a facilitator or a director. So yes, you're going to work together, but if you don't put anyone in charge, if you have 3 different organizations working together and no one's named
Sure.
the leader,
The question is
then
about
guess what?
relationship with
What
more
happens?
rural
This
areas.
is your turn.
I think
Nobody does anything right. We've all experienced that before. How many of you hated group projects?
There are rural areas. David,
Most of
those
us. Unless you're
rural
that one
areas
person who takes the
seldom
lead.
have neighborhood associations. They have a different way
So
of
it's never
relating.
fun to be named the
And
facilitator,
so historically,
from the outside, but really it is
we have
great
not
to take
worked
that ownership
with the
and
rural
take
areas.
pride, and sometimes you
Now
get a
we're
little more
beginning to
say
have to do
in
that.
how the
But
project goes.
unfortunately,
Kind
the
of like your
reason why
person
we're
who
having,
said I'm in charge of
to do it
how we're gonna
is
how we're
because
gonna
the
do it.
density in the
Hopefully
rural
you don't
areas
have that
are
spirit,
becoming
but naming someone so
stronger,
that something
and the
gets
people
done.
who traditionally live
I've-
in those rural
In
areas
talking
move
about the
further and
successes,
further away.
I've touched on
I'd-
some
I'd
of the
love to see
challenges too,
how we can
and that
do that kind of work
that is
without
that a lot of times with
dislocating all
collaboration,
the
there's a
people
lot
who
of
live in
talk,
rural
but not a
areas.
lot of action. And I think
Thanks,
in this
everybody.
city where we all work really well together, and we have a great nonprofit system, and a fabulous mayor and government that invests in nonprofits and even our private sector that collaborates with nonprofit and government. We still see people having meetings. Part of my culture comes from the church, and so in church communities, a lot of times we joke that you have to have a committee to do anything. And sometimes I think that's true in nonprofits is we have a lot of committees, but what are we just going to go do? So sometimes in collaboration, you have to be very intentional about matching the talk with action. Another challenge is that compromise is necessary. And of course, we know that. I'm looking at a room of very smart people, some of whom I have collaborated with before. And compromise is required, but sometimes that gets really hard, particularly when it's on something as impactful as the actual goal of the project. So compromising on a small thing doesn't seem like a big deal, but compromising on the big thing can be very challenging. And so sometimes you have to enter collaboration, not with this is the best project ever for me or my organization, but with I can live with that kind of attitude. And that means you have to weigh the merits of the collaboration. Is it worth it? If I'm just getting something that I can live with, will the long-term benefit be more valuable than not having it at all? Because sometimes the truth is it's better to not have it at all if you have to compromise to such an extent. And so I think that's just an important as you approach collaborations. Another challenge is time. So I think that goes without saying, but time is particularly precious. So to make a successful collaboration, allow more time because you have to wait for that email, phone call, or that meeting from your partner to your grant in or to implement the neighborhood celebration or World Refugee Day might be in our case. So all these different time factors. But if you're really wanting to plan, I would say plan for extra time and then double it, and maybe you'll have enough. So collaborations take a lot of effort, and usually well-done collaborations are worth it. I know you all know that, but it does make it a little bit harder, particularly in an environment where funding is slim and you may not have a lot of time. And then I think a final challenge that I wanted to talk about is that sometimes there's inequity in the buy-in to the collaboration. So maybe an organization or a party will agree to be part of your collaboration, but they really don't care about it that much, or they really just want you to do it or expect you to do it for them, and then they reap the benefits of it. And again, that's not always a negative thing. It doesn't have to be a negative thing because maybe that party, just by being at the table, is contributing a piece that your organization or goal will be stronger of because of their presence. But I think it's a reality to name that can be a challenge if people have different expectations. The last question that Pathfinder sent is, how has it made a difference? How has collaboration made a difference in serving diverse populations? And I'll go back to my food analogy, is that when you try new things, you sometimes learn things that you didn't expect to like, and you appreciate the process more when you have been a part of it. That collective cooking example, if you had to go out and buy the food together or clean up after the meal, you appreciate it more because you know all that went into it from all parties. And you can really taste the richness of all these people coming together. Another difference that I have seen is that a lot of times you end up with more sustainable outcomes. The idea of collective impact is another buzzword, but there's truth in it that the sum, I'm bad at this, I didn't write this down, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. If you all know what I'm talking about, I'm probably butchering that. Collaborate and help me out. But the idea that we're stronger than just the sum of the whole, and the outcomes that we see in our work are more long-lasting or richer. I think another piece to realize is that collaborations don't have to go on forever. In fact, the tip is to set an end date. How long are we going to collaborate? Even if you think you might go on forever, maybe say, we'll renew every year for this relationship or partnership, because there may be a change in leadership or a change in your client or patient population, or a change in the politics around you beyond anyone's control, that the collaboration that's currently working beautifully may not in 5 years. So if you say we're going to have a 10-year partnership, that may not always be beneficial for everyone. And I think I'll end with an example of a collaboration. One of my favorites that I've ever gotten to be a part of. It was a big honor. It was before I was working at Siloam. I was working at Vanderbilt in their Institute for Global Health. And some teachers from Metro Schools came to us. And my area of work is often with refugee and immigrant populations in the city. And they had a particular refugee group of students in their class. And they said, you know, we're ESL teachers. We deal with ESL kids every day. We have many refugee families that have been part of our lives and our student body for many years. But we have this one group that is particularly challenging, and we're not sure why. So we built a partnership, my organization and the schools and this refugee group. They were a very small group, about under 100 people total in the city at that time. So it was nice because we could meet them all. And so the three stakeholders worked together to do some research to learn more about this refugee group and their culture, and the school and their needs. And at Vanderbilt, we got to be the quote unquote researchers, but it was really more like communicators or just translators almost, to help the two parties talk to each other. And it was really beautiful because working with these ESL teachers, as we were sort of designing the research project, you know, we were just using terms that made sense in our world. And I said, no, we can't use the term empowerment. That doesn't represent what we mean. And I thought, well, that's a great word. We all want empowerment of your, you know, students or your families. But they, so we worked through different nuances of the project, and it was probably about a year-long project total that in the end resulted with a better relationship between these families and the schools, but also between the schools, the families, and the university and medical center. But I think my favorite part was just seeing these refugee community really thrive. And since then, it's not just because of that project, it's because this refugee community was strong and needed time to acculturate. But they just really took off. So we've seen a lot of success. We've seen members of their community get better paying jobs. They're building houses. They're forming their own community organization. One of the things that the moms we were having a focus group with one day, something came up about their national dress. And we said, yeah, you can wear your dress to the celebration we're having next week. Said, really? We didn't know we were allowed to wear our national dress in your country. And so now they have a national day every year. I just saw it on Facebook from this past year. And this collaboration was 7 or 8 years ago now. So just seeing the ongoing benefits that made all of us stronger and our city stronger and more flourishing. A wonderful treat. So all for me, and take some questions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So to repeat, what I think, you can correct me if I'm not getting the summary of your um, comment comment, but that our city is very diverse, and it's a lot of different pockets, and so collaboration should entail um, learning from not just different language groups and learning to communicate through interpreters or translators, but to really understand the cultures behind the groups with whom we're working. And I really agree with that. When I teach students on cultural competency, um, a lot of times what I ask them to do or ask them to think through is time that they've had a cross cultural experience. And a lot of times they'll say, "I've never traveled outside the U.S." But I say, "Well, have you ever traveled to the north or to the south? Are you new here?" And so just even within our own state, my own state, this is my home state, there's a lot of differences. And so I try to talk about the different cultures that we have, even if our skin color looks the same or our language is shared. And then say lessons learned from that cross-cultural experience, apply that to someone who may look or speak a different way than you. And honestly, I think the more extreme cultural differences are sometimes a little easier because our guard is up. So just an example I've heard is that people who text while they drive are worse drivers than drunk drivers, because when drunk drivers they're very aware that they're, not always, I'm sure, but that there's an awareness that they're intoxicated and they don't want to get pulled over, so they're trying really hard. But text and driving, you just think you can do it. We think we're great multitaskers. So I think it's sort of the same analogy of when there's a strong difference, we're trying to work on it, and when we make assumptions, that's when a lot of times the collaboration falls apart. Absolutely. So the question is about the differences in collaborating among like, so nonprofit to nonprofit, for instance, versus the collaboration between an organization and a client or patient population, or anytime there is a power difference in the collaboration process. It only makes the process more challenging. But I think some of the same successes that work well in like to like collaborations work well when you're working with the power differences. So an example would be, I'll give you one that I'm still struggling through. So I'm training community health workers to be health liaisons into their native communities with the health system, Siloam, and the hospitals and any other health system in our city. And I studied community health. I know all the ways to do it, but knowing how and actually doing it right is not the same thing. And so I have done my needs assessments, and I have had community meetings. I have talked to community leaders and gotten their buy-in to work with their populations, and had them select my health workers who would be the leaders. And we still have trouble. So I did those things right. That was in quotes for those on the webinar. But we still struggle, and so I think that continued communication is necessary. Having those members that are bicultural has been the best part of making this work, because they helped translate for me. But I had to train them. In fact, I just had to remind them of that training recently. When we started, we went through some case studies of what if your supervisor tells you to do something that you know won't work in your community. And in a lot of their cultures, and that they would not correct a supervisor, so they would just not. That would be the norm. But I'm telling them, in this culture, I want you to correct me if I'm telling you to do something that won't work in your community. And we just had that come up again, where I said, oh, I really wish you had corrected me before I told you to do something that wasn't part of your community. But just revisiting that, and it wasn't a major faux pas, but it was a little one that made a good teaching example and a good reminder. So having people who understand both worlds is really helpful. I always try to be aware that I could be isolating that person from their community if they're seen as siding with my community or the power, the more powered community. But also what I try to do is remind them of, not just remind them, but actually seek out the resources that they have to contribute. So that's what collaboration is all contributing our strengths. And so really celebrating those when they bring them to the table and allowing them to grow and have opportunities for growth. It sometimes takes longer to do it, just like that class project in college. Like, if you just did it all yourself, you could have done a lot faster. But letting them take a part of it sometimes helps. But it's still really hard and messy. I don't have it down yet. When I do, maybe I'll write a book and become famous and retire, but not yet. Thank you all.
So I just want to add something briefly about the work that Amy does. I met one family from Burma. And I have two children with disabilities, and they have a volunteer person to speak English. And she was helping fill out the application, communicate with the family, and at some point the family had an application for some type of health care program. I mean, the volunteer, that person was volunteer for me, but she told me, oh, I will help them with this application because they work long as part of the healthcare navigator. So Amy said, oh, are you religious? No. So community collaboration, that's a great example. But for now, we have Christina Fraser with the Hispanic Family Foundation. She is also an awesome example of Nashville of how to build this collaboration.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I'll try it. Stand still. So I'm going to try not to use the word collaboration, and you can cheer if I do, whatever. So my name's Christina Allen. I'm going to tell you about myself and how I have built my collaboration. I'm not a nonprofit person. I've just served a lot in the nonprofit world, and I have the opportunity, as I will tell you the story, that I'm the executive director of the Hispanic Family Foundation, which is a brand new 501c3. But I'm also the chief marketing officer of this other company, of the owners who founded it. So I'll kind of go a little bit earlier. As I moved here in 1988, right out of college from Las Cruces, New Mexico. When I moved here and I told people I was from New Mexico, they told me they'd been to Cozumel or Cancun. I'm like, no, I'm from the state between Texas and Arizona, and people did not understand that. But then again, I probably couldn't tell you where Connecticut was, because in our weatherman had like 2 minutes, because it's always hot and sunny in New Mexico, or here the weathermen were the stars. So I learned a lot of identity of who I am. My mother's from Mexico, a place called Ciudad Obregón, Sonora. I am from New Mexico, born in Taos. I also have to remind people that the border moved, not the people. The border, moved. So my father is Spanish and English, and he met my mother's the only one from Mexico that moved to the United States. I have about 25 first cousins in Mexico and about 23 in the United States. I'm Catholic, Hispanic, Democrat, and so when I moved here at 22, I'm 52 on Friday, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot of how to understand who I was. Okay, so how many played sports growing up? Okay, I played sports. I competitively swam, but mostly I played volleyball and softball. And I'm competitive. I'm type A all the way. And for me, I want to win. When I want to win, I want the best people on my team. And if that means you're black, gay, I don't care. If you get me the ball and we win, you're on my team. So I was in an apartment complex in Bellevue, didn't know a soul. There's 5,000 people at the Ridge Lake apartment complex. I don't know what it's called now. And whoever you are, wherever you're from, if you were good, you're on my team. And that's how I am. So I look at life as I want to win in a positive way, but in sports, it's, do or die. So, but I worked at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center when I moved here. I did not make anything because I was 22, but all I had was time. And when you have time, you have energy. When you have energy, you got to give it. Because my money, I don't have time now. I have 3 teenagers. But I had time when I'm young, and I volunteered. And you might be in different situations in your life, but I volunteered. So I chaired Zoo Fest. I chaired Clinic Bowl, if anyone knows what Clinic Bowl, State High School Football Championship. I got involved with just different organizations where I met people. And I met people intentionally because sometimes you do join things like yourself, like your church, where it all looks the same, but I was happy with my church, which was very diverse, which is the Cathedral of Incarnation downtown. But you saw and you met people. And as I grew professionally, I was stuck in a position. But when I volunteered, I was able to get more credibility and more access to my field, like negotiating television, that I wouldn't have received as my profession, but I received as volunteering. And I met people. So when I got my next job professionally, I already knew what the hell I was doing. So I'm at the advantage. So professionally, I grew faster because of volunteering and just giving of my time. As I grew from TPAC to Genesco, great job, Genesco. I went to work in the music industry. We did B.B. King Blues Festival, Pink Floyd, country artists. It was all about get involved in whatever is in those fields. From T.J. Martell, which is the industry, to, TPAC had Bravo, to the Tennessee High School Horse Association. But I grew up with a horse, so I had ropers, their type of boot, and I could relate. So you get involved in what you belong to at the moment. And when you get involved at that moment, whatever job you represent, you have full knowledge of what's going on around you. And you might take you to another job and you do the same thing. But guess what? Valerie, she would work at Girl Scouts. I was on the board of Girl Scouts. We are now reconnecting after probably 18 years because I would bring my baby. She just graduated at 18. So now I see Valerie and I can reconnect with her. Claudia, we met when she just moved here. We see each other all the time and because of collaboration. But if I meet you, I will make sure going, how did I meet you? What were we on? I don't sit there going, oh, she didn't say hi to me. Oh, what did she do? But the other thing I think I do as a person is I give you everything I have. If you're nonprofit and you don't have a Spanish media list, I'll give you mine. If you don't have things that I have that you need to serve the community, I'll give you mine. Now, if you're for-profit, I'll charge you. Because wait a minute. I had my own company. I forgot to mention that. So I had a company called Caliente Consulting. And what I did was I worked with companies that want to reach the growing demographic shift. My biggest client was Budweiser, Ajax Turner. I did all their multicultural initiative, Hispanic, Black. I worked with the Indian community. Wait a minute, I don't see any Indians here. Why not? They're huge here. So I worked with the Indian community and I got to know them. The Korean Association. Don't see a lot of Asians in here. Why not? Don't know if there is, but it's hard. But so you become intentional in what you have to give by including them into your world because there's cultural difference or cultural intelligence to do that. So when I worked in the for-profit, people would hire me so that I can help them build their sales. But in doing so, I collaborated with the different groups to understand that. Again, when I built my professional stuff, I would serve on boards and give up my time. So, Amy, I don't know if we've met. Okay, so I'm on the Salome committee for Amplify Nashville. I just sent her today, which I did not know you were a speaker, my database for all my English contacts of media and all my Spanish contacts of media, because I need her event to succeed, even though she's a nonprofit, because I believe in what she's doing. And if I can give my resources, my contacts, my sponsors, whatever, for her to succeed without feeling that it will push me out, then that is what collaboration is all about. Because you cannot be selfish. You have to be intentional and making everyone successful. So I look at the questions, how do I develop network and its benefits? I will wear your hat. I will wear your hat first, but I expect you to wear mine. And if you don't wear mine, that's the challenges of ego and saying, oh, you know, draw that line. I don't have time for that. Either you get it or you don't. If you don't get it and I have to work with you, I will do so, and I will over-deliver, because you're going to say, hey, I want to work with her again. But if you don't deliver to me, next opportunity, I'm going to pass you by and go to the next person that thinks the same as me. Because we have to move forward, and I don't have time, I can tell my patients, if you don't get about the demographic shift right now as a nonprofit, where the heck have you been? Okay? I just don't get it. The statistics are there, and we see it. So the schools, everything's there. Okay, successes. Well, I'm going to come back to that. Challenges. It's ego. If you don't get that you have something to give to another nonprofit and you don't give it up, you know, what does that say? We have to be successful. The people you're serving are the people I'm serving, the people you're serving. We have to be successful and network and share each other's resources. Does anyone remember the TV show Bewitch? Okay, Bewitch. Do you remember Darren's boss's name? Bewitch was the lady who twinkled her nose. Okay, his name was Larry Tate. Okay, I belong to the Larry Tate Club. And let me tell you what that is. When I worked at TPAC, we had the Broadway series, we had the biggest budget. I could reach the biggest audience with my Phantom of the Opera or Les Miserables or shows. The symphony had good shows, the repertory had good shows, circle players, and the opera. There was 5 constituent groups that were all, this was before the symphony hall was built. We all worked together. Well, at the time, we all competed, because if you go to the symphony, I had to think, oh, you're not going to go to Broadway. But we all came together, and we named ourselves the Larry Tate Club, which is the guru of advertising. Remember, he had an advertising agency that Darren Stevens worked at. And we shared each other's database. We shared each other's resources, because we're the arts. There is no money in the arts, and we have to believe that the arts is beautiful for our city, just like the Titans and Predators are. Arts is viable. And by collaborating, we shared each other's resources, and we believe that if you're going to go to TPAC, to a Broadway show, you might go to the symphony as well, or you might go see Shakespeare in the Park. We all work together because it's the same mindset. Not like, ooh, I'm not giving you my list because you might take my subscriber. They're going to choose anyway. Let's work together. That was my first success, and that's been my attitude since. I'm going to show you what I believe success. So I have my own company. I do international trade for the state of Tennessee to Mexico, Latin America. Budweiser was my client. I just had different clients, and about 4 years ago, I got a client who owns the new Plaza Mariachi, Music City. If you have not been there, I encourage you to visit it. It's a mixed-use development. And when Mark, the owner, told me that, hey, we have this 501c3 we just filed, and I don't know what to do with it, but I own 2 Spanish radio stations here. How do I market the services to the Latinos, like a service line, a hotline? Well, knowing the city that way I do, I knew that United Way had a 211, and they were supposed to have launched it in Spanish, and they never did. And so I went to United Way and say, hey, what are you doing? I can market it if you have someone who speaks Spanish to answer the calls. Because we cannot do it internally because of insurance, and if we don't know the right things, you have to be trained to understand phone calls like that. You never know what kind of call you're going to get. So with all due respect to United Way, I don't think they got it. Met with them 5 times. They didn't get it. Meanwhile, I meet with Cecilia and Megan and Alejandro. They get it. They understood collaboration. They started the Camino Seguro, which is the database here at Pathfinders. And so opportunity to see, hey, can we help work with you and what we have to offer? And so what I did in creating the Hispanic Family Foundation with the guidance of the owners is this video. So I started with, And Monica Reina, a program manager, is in the back there, and she's teacher.
The mission of Hispanic Family Foundation is to improve and strengthen the lives of Nashville's Hispanic community. The Hispanic Family Foundation will educate, motivate, and elevate the Latino community through legal, economic, social, and cultural experiences. We opened our doors in January 2016, and in less than a year, we helped over 5,000 families in an array of services. By building an atmosphere of collaborative energy, HFF has both created programming and partnered with nonprofits to provide quality service to our growing Latino community. With our reach, trust, and accessibility to the Latino community, we have amazing partners, including the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute, offering English classes for adults with a strong, multi-level curriculum. We began with 10 students and now have multiplied our reach 10 times with students enrolled in 5 different English classes throughout the week. Metro Nashville Public Schools. The Enrollment Center assists our Latino families by registering their children for school. Right now, over 25% of Metro students are English language learners. Other partners include the Tennessee Disability Pathfinder, a program of Vanderbilt Kennedy Center. This program connects individuals with disabilities and appropriate resources. The HFF staff has also been trained on their bilingual database, Camino Seguro, which offers a database of services including everything from social service agencies to low-income medical clinics. The Sexual Assault Center. This provides healing for children, adults, and families affected by sexual assault through counseling, safety, and education. And Family and Children's Services, which provides health navigators who meet with the families to find medical services and healthcare insurance, all professional Spanish speaking. To help our community navigate the legal system, we have our Legal Information and Referrals Program. This program also helps to find access to affordable legal resources. In addition, we have a radio show, Lunes de Inmigración, which educates listeners on different topics, ranging from rental agreements to voting rights. Recently, we initiated a voter registration campaign. In our next phase, we are excited to partner with Lipscomb University in creating a learning lab to serve Latino youth. We are also finalizing the creation of Nashville's first Hispanic Entrepreneur Center, Arts and Culture. Baila Dance Studio is a free after-school enrichment program for children offering traditional Latin dance classes. We have over 125 children enrolled in different dance classes ranging from folklore and ballet to Aztec and Kung Fu. We take pride in our dance instructors as they promote and educate the students of their Latin culture by also teaching self-esteem and confidence. Free adult yoga and cardio classes are offered to adults during the day. To bring a love of the art and culture to our community, HFF will have the Ceiba Art Gallery inside Plaza Mariachi. Curator Jorge Yances is creating a Latino art gallery to promote Hispanic arts and culture for all. With the Hispanic Family Foundation's reach, trust, and accessibility to Middle Tennessee Hispanics, we will improve and strengthen the lives of Nashville's Hispanic community. Jorge Yances is creating
So with this, the success came from relationships I had before we launched. It's success that I worked with Metro Schools as a volunteer to understand the growth of the Latino students. And so I was able to go to Kevin Stacy and say, hey, we need you here. It was to go to Megan, Cecilia, and Alejandro, who I've known through different paths. Megan, I met here, but to understand, we'll give you space. We can do radio spots. I have a owner who has other, I can leverage his other for-profits for the success of what we're trying to do here. I used to be on the board of the Sexual Assault Center. I went to the executive director and saying, hey, they're not going to go to Metro Center to get their services. Why don't you come here? We'll give you parking. We'll give you safety. We'll give you accessibility and trust. And we were able to do that. And so we've been open a year and a half. A great success story real fast was I know Pat Shea with the YWCA for years, and she came to our open house and saw what we had. She was retiring, but she said, I want you to meet with Tanya. Tanya came and said, well, hey, we have the HiSET program, the equivalent of a GED, and we would love for you to do a classes here. And we're sitting there going, okay, here's our available dates. We'll put it on our Facebook. Latinos and immigrants follow Facebook a lot. And then we'll do a PSA on our radio spots. We put a posting on our Facebook. Her goal was to get 15 people. We had 200 calls between Monday and Wednesday. We had 53 people signed up, and we're now going to add another class. If the Latinos or the people need it, they're going to come. And so her success was our success, because it's the same people who listen to our radio, who shop at Plaza Mariachi, and this video is a little old, so we're open, and it's the people we're trying to serve. So as we move forward with the foundation, we are not the bigger foundations. We're not Turk. I mean, everyone wants to know about Conexión Americas, as everyone's here. They are awesome in what they do, but they've been open 15 years. We've been open 1. Catholic Charities Hispanic Services, I used to be on their board, and then they have a great outreach. And Tennessee Immigrant, Turk, there's enough room for everybody to share. And that's my message to you, is be intentional of what you do, be transparent. You wear my hat, because I'm going to wear yours, and if you wear my hat, I'll give you your measurables. But I might not have the measurables right now, but sooner or later, we're going to scratch each other's back. You have to think that way. And it's all about measurables sometimes, I think. So that's kind of like what I kind of work on. I still have that mental attitude in friendships and my work environment with everything else I do, is that if I have something I can offer you, I'll give it to you. And I hope you respect it and cherish it, and we do something with it. So any questions? I don't know what that's. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Name tags, evaluation form. And thanks for coming.